What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're finally going to be talking about that supply drop scandal, I guess we can call it a scandal, that happened last week, where the variants for several of the weapons in the game have been completely eliminated from the loot pool, and therefore you can't get them out of supply drops anymore. This kind of blew up last week. It's been a pretty big deal. I've been meaning to get around to it, but I've been really busy and my upload schedule has already been kind of set. So I've just been trying to squeeze it into my schedule and I haven't been able to do that until today. But I wanted to share my thoughts on this. I did a bunch of research as well. I think I can add a little bit that some other people didn't quite cover with this. And hopefully I can shed just a little bit more light on this situation while also sharing my thoughts and opinions. So essentially last week, a Reddit user found out that for certain weapons, their variants were no longer available in supply drops. This was after some communication with Activision support, and these weapons include the BAR, the M1928 Thompson, the Lewis, the Bren, the Combat Shotgun, the M30 Luftwaffe Drilling, the Kar 98K, the P08, and the 1911. For all of these guns, their variants are no longer in supply drops at all. You just can't get them out of supply drops. And this actually changed on the update that we got on March 12th. This is where they also made a bunch of tweaks to the supply drop system where they had less duplicates. They confirmed that they're not going to be adding any more pistol grips. They added weapon charms. They just made a bunch of changes to the supply drop system. And this was one of them. And they did announce it in that community update. Many of us YouTubers did cover this at the time. And I just wanted to point out that before this March 12th update, all of these weapon variants were only available in common supply drops. And this is significant because this means you couldn't get them with CoD points. You couldn't just throw money at the screen and get these variants out of drops because you can't get common drops with CoD points. You can only get rare drops as well as bribes and things like that. And this change was actually sparked from a post a little while before that, where a different Reddit user found out that fact that these variants were only available in common supply drops because it wasn't really common knowledge. I personally didn't know about this and I play this game daily. I didn't know about it until that post, but just to make sure I present all the facts, this was available on an FAQ page on the Call of Duty website. It's still available there, and it was at the time as well. So while that information was technically out there, it definitely wasn't common knowledge. So just to recap, the variants of these particular weapons before March 12th were only available in common supply drops. Then on that March 12th update, they removed them completely from the supply drop pool, but these are now the variants we have access to with those weekly orders that we get. So you'll notice the first week after that, we had the M1928 Thompson Handler variant. That was one of the ones that was previously only available in common drops. Then we got the BAR Old Captain, and then this past week we had the Kar 98 Torpedo variant. So while they have been removed from the loot pool, we are now going to have a direct way to earn them, although I don't know if they're going to be able to get through every single one of them, because there's quite a few variants, and also we haven't seen any heroics from this yet, we've only seen epics. So it might be the case that the heroics are just completely gone forever, and there won't be any possible way to earn them from here on out. I'm not 100% sure on that one though. In either case, the system itself, I actually don't really mind this system. I like the idea of having certain variants that you can't just throw money at the screen and get. You have to actually earn them. You have to be playing at a particular time, like that particular week. You have to activate that order and you have to work towards it and actually unlock that variant. I think that's a neat idea. However, the big issue here is transparency. You shouldn't have to be going on Activision's website looking at an FAQ in order to find out that certain weapon variants are locked in common supply drops and you can't get them with rare supply drops that you spend money on. You shouldn't have to be on Reddit or following YouTubers in order to find out that these variants have been removed from the supply drop pool and are now only going to be available through these weekly orders. This kind of stuff, in my opinion, should have been much more clearly stated within the game itself. Now, if you do go and hover over these particular variants, the ones that I mentioned from the weapons I mentioned, you'll see that that little description that pops up on the top right, it is a little bit different than the description of the other weapon variants in the game, in that it doesn't state that you can get them out of supply drops. However, I don't feel this is even close to clear enough. I don't really know too many people that actually go and hover over every variant and read the little description on the top right to see exactly how to get them. Before finding out about all of this stuff, I thought it was pretty reasonable to assume that all of the variants were in the supply drop pool. There was no reason to believe otherwise. And I think most people were thinking along the same lines. There was nothing in-game that was extremely clear that showed that these variants were different than the other variants in that they weren't available in the regular supply drop pool. They were only available in commons, and now they're not even available in supply drops at all. This, in my eyes, is very sketchy, especially because people are spending real money on this. Now, personally, I don't endorse people spending any money whatsoever on the supply drop system. I don't do it myself. I haven't bought a single supply drop in CoD World War II, and I never will buy a single supply drop in CoD World War II. But the fact of the matter is, there are people out there that are spending this money, and for many of them, I would even go so far as to say most of them, they probably didn't know that it wasn't possible for them to get these particular variants out of those supply drops they were buying. This is a really big deal, and this is really sketchy as well. Like I said, Activision technically did cover their bases with their FAQ section and everything, as well as the description on each individual weapon variant. But I think it really comes down to what a reasonable person would expect based on how things are presented. And the way they're currently presented, there doesn't appear to be a very clear distinction between these variants and all of the other variants in the game. What they really should have done here is the weapon variants that you can't get in the loot pool, they should have had either like a different colored text, like a red text or something over them that showed that they were different from the other ones and they weren't available in the loot pool, or maybe like a little icon next to it that shows that they're not available. Something that clearly shows that these aren't the same as the others. If they would have done something like that, I think they would have avoided this all completely because it would have been very clear to see, it would have been common knowledge, and there would be no controversy behind it. Like I said, the system itself, I don't think is inherently bad. The only issue here is transparency. If we even look back to Advanced Warfare, which was also a Sledgehammer game, at some point towards the end of the life cycle, they actually retired several of the items in the game from the supply drop pool. While this did upset some people, at least in that situation, it was very clear, it was made extremely clear that those items were retired. It actually says right on them in red text, retired. That's the right way to handle something like this. Not just changing up the little text description, which can basically be treated like the fine print because, like I said, it's not reasonable for people to go and hover over every single variant in the game and read their description to find out if it's available in supply drops or if it isn't available in supply drops. They really need to make this clear for people. And that's basically all I have to say on this matter. I really hope Sledgehammer takes note of this and makes that adjustment, makes it very clear that these are different variants from the other variants that are in the supply drop pool. If people are spending real money on something, it should be made clear what is available to them with that money that they're spending. Even if it is in a random loot box, it should be made absolutely clear what they can potentially get out of those loot boxes and what they can't get out of those loot boxes. And with that, of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what are your guys' thoughts on this situation? First off, just looking at the system itself without the lack of transparency, just the system, do you agree with me? Do you think it is kind of a neat system where there's certain variants that you can't just throw money at the screen and get, but you have to actually play and earn? And then second, what are your thoughts on the lack of transparency or the way that they've presented these variants in-game? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.